In our lecture on the peace settlements, it was believed that the Peace of Versailles, the Treaty of Versailles, was hopefully setting in place a system for greater peace. Again, the goal of the League of Nations was that it would provide a forum where countries could come together to discuss and arbitrate their differences peaceably. But more than that, the League of Nations was seen as a way to deter future conflicts. The belief was that through the principle of collective security, the League of Nations would work as a deterrent for anyone taking aggressive action. The belief was that if any nation was trying to get out of line or upset the peace of Europe, the rest of the countries of the League of Nations would be willing to work in concert, perhaps impose sanctions, even perhaps risk war in order to prevent a country from upsetting the balance of peace. The thought being that this would deter any future conflict. And indeed, in the aftermath of the Treaty of Versailles, during the 20s, it seemed as though Europe was trending towards a more peaceable future. In 1924, the Dawes Plan was enacted, which was an attempt to reassess and readjust the policy of reparations, make it more equitable or easier for Germany to pay their reparations. In 1925, the Locarno Pact was an attempt to create, if you will, a fresh start with the German and French countries. They agreed to abide by the border, namely Alsace and Lorraine is truly French. The Germans agreed to demilitarize the Rhineland, a 30-mile strip on their side of the border. They had agreed to do this in Versailles, but this is a recommitment to it. And by 1929, you even have the Kellogg-Briand Pact, where most of Europe, including the US and Japan, agree to not use war as a means of settling state issues. And so during the 1920s, which was a period of economic productivity and prosperity, it seems the world is trending towards peace, and people are looking for a way to peacefully coexist. Unfortunately, then the Great Depression hits. The Great Depression, famous for the stock market crash in the United States, devastates the US economy as well as global productivity, global industry, and the global economy as a whole. And indeed, part of the reason it gets so bad is so many countries respond out of fear with actions that make it worse not only for their individual countries, but also the globe as a whole. Many countries enact high tariffs and enact budget cuts in terms of trying to save money and protect their goods, but every country taking this action hinders global trade and again makes the economies worse overall. Indeed, this is a time period in which the economist John Maynard Keynes comes to prominence in championing a very different vision for global economics. He championed government intervention in the economy, often to increase mass purchasing power by the people in order to try and alleviate the boom and bust cycles that he felt had led to the Great Depression itself. The problem is, as Europe and Western civilization suffers economically, it's also starting to shift towards a more dangerous future. After the Great Depression, you have an increase in political tensions, largely wrought by the two powers Germany and Italy we'll talk about in a later lecture. In 1935, Italy invades Ethiopia, attempting to fulfill Mussolini's goal of building a new Roman Empire. While in 1936, Germany violates not only the Versailles Treaty, but also the Locarno Treaty in remilitarizing, reoccupying the Rhineland. And so what you should see in this is increasing political tensions, but more than that, where's collective security? Where are the principles of collective security? They largely falter. Good example, when Italy invades Ethiopia, the League of Nations puts in place sanctions, but they're relatively minor, and after the war is over, after Italy conquers Ethiopia, the sanctions are removed. And so collective security, which was much hoped for and much believed would be the basis for future peace, falters in these conflicts and showcases that collective security is not going to restrain the increasing tensions and territorial desires of Germany and Italy. And tensions proceed apace. What happens next in terms of one of the larger conflicts of the time period is that Spain devolves into civil war. This is functionally a fight between political sides, the rightist fascist nationalists and the broadly center and leftist Republicans. Now, this is a fight for any number of Spanish reasons, but the conflict is important because it becomes a proxy war for much of the rest of Europe. Germany and Italy send arms, equipment, and even troops themselves to help aid the Spanish nationalists. Stalin will send fighters to aid the communists within Spain, while you even have volunteer brigades of American and British and others joining and helping fight for the Republicans. Now, one party that did stay out that was surprising was France. France had a Popular Front government, as did the Republicans, and so it was believed that the French were going to get involved, but they end up staying neutral out of fear that getting involved in this civil war would fracture the very carefully designed coalition government they had in place. But more than the Spanish Civil War, in many ways prefiguring the divide in Europe and the sides that would fight in World War II, you also have a glimpse of the war to come. And the glimpse of the war to come is the bombing of Guernica. Guernica is a Republican town that was bombed on Market Day, when the families, the children, the wives were crammed into the city center. This Guernica was not an important town. It doesn't have any military infrastructure. It simply supported the Republicans. And German airplanes that were aiding the Spanish come in and bomb the town proper. Many people look at this and see this as the first example of terror bombing in the Second World War, the wars to come. This was an attempt to kowtow the civilians, not destroy a military target, simply to punish and inflict terror for terror's sake. Many people see that this is the beginning of the type of bombing that we're going to see throughout the Second World War, both over the London Blitz, the bombing campaign against Germany, the bombing campaign against Japan, even perhaps a glimmer of the atomic bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Again, the Spanish Civil War is prefiguring a horrible war to come. And the problem is the tensions are going to increase. After the invasion of Ethiopia, after the remilitarization of the Rhineland, after the Spanish Civil War, you even get the Japanese expanding globally these tensions by the invasion of China. And so you're getting increasing tensions, more conflicts, and indeed conflicts are going to continue even within Europe. Hitler, who by now is ruler of Germany, is threatening the European peace and making noises about how he wants to take an area of Czechoslovakia known as the Sudetenland and absorb it into the German Reich, because it is filled with Germans and Germans should be with his people, so a very nationalist argument. And he's threatening war to do it. And it seems that war is going to come until the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Neville Chamberlain, and the leaders of France and Italy intervene and hammer out an agreement. Functionally, this agreement, which Chamberlain comes back and says, this is peace in our time, famous phrase that turns out not to be true. The Germans are granted the Sudetenland, what they want, with a guarantee that Hitler will have no more territorial ambitions, and thus the tensions in Europe will subside. The problem is nothing of the sort happens. This Munich Agreement simply convinces Hitler that the West will do nothing to oppose German expansion. He can simply continue to expand, and thus by the next year, Hitler invades and occupies the rest of the Czech region of Czechoslovakia and creates a puppet state of Slovakia as well, undoing this agreement at a stroke. And so this means by 1939 you are setting the stage for the conflict to come. In response to this violation of the Munich Agreement, British and France extend guarantees to Poland, saying, that's it, Germany, you can't threaten the peace anymore, we will protect Poland. Though, to be honest, why would Hitler believe them now? They haven't done much up till now to preserve the peace. Certainly, why would he believe they would do it now? And even more than that, more than distrusting, he pulls off a diplomatic coup that he believes will ensure that the British and French will not get involved. He signs an agreement with the Soviet Union, his ideological opposites, a Nazi-Soviet pact that agrees to divide up Europe, or Eastern Europe, between the two of them. And at a stroke, Hitler believes this ensures that if I deal with Poland, certainly Britain and France won't get involved. And so by the middle of, near the fall of 1939, you're approaching a period in which Hitler thinks, I can deal with Poland and Britain and France will back down again. And so what we have by 1939 is not a peaceful, cooperative world that it was believed was being created by Versailles, but a world on the precipice of a second and even more horrible global war.